We haven't talked at all after watching the video, so we'll have it out on live.
Right. Yeah. Hey, folks, welcome to a podcast about Catholic things. This is Eric, the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with
Dan, the ambassador of nonsense. Hello, folks. And we have a lot of nonsense right now.
We have all kinds of nonsense and all kinds of serious stuff, too.
Yep.
Didn't somebody get killed in Indianapolis yesterday? Three.
4 shootings,
died.
3 deaths. None of them officer and none of them were police involved. So here's the thing about that. I could not find out, and I haven't searched specifically for this, but in the couple of reports about it that I listened to, it seemed like they were very careful not to say whether or not the person who was shot was a rioter or was a victim of rioters.
Right.
They just were very clear to say it was not a police-involved shooting.
These are the ones in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Specifically Indianapolis. There were like 3 of them. There was like one shooting that involved 2 people, and then there were 2 other shootings.
Well, in Minneapolis, there was a shooting. I guess a guy who owned a pawn shop was just... The way they talk about it, he's just standing out in front of his pawn shop shooting at people.
Oh, okay.
I kind of doubt that's really what happened. But he was arrested.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
There are things like that happening all over the country, I think.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
But we ought to give a little bit of context in case somebody listens to this 3 years from now.
Oh, yeah. But
were we going to... Here's the thing. We had a plan for this podcast.
Yeah, we were going to talk about taking offense easily and being brought to anger easily. And this kind of fits in.
I was going to say, I think we should have that podcast and let it lead into this.
Okay. We'll do that. So, but the event we're talking about is the death of
George Floyd.
George Floyd by Minneapolis police.
Yeah.
Supposedly. Maybe. I don't know. We're going to wait for the coroner.
Yeah. I mean, they'll probably do an autopsy.
Yeah. They are doing
given everything that's going on. Yeah.
Well, anyway, we'll get to that point eventually. But we are going to talk about anger and being easily offended to the point where you feel that you have to somehow take revenge or get even. And I think me and Dan, you and I are both very uniquely positioned to talk about this because it's very hard to offend either one of us.
That's true.
And I don't just mean that we're always friendly, because I'm very rarely friendly. You're a lot friendlier than I am. I'm usually kind of grumpy, but you'd have to go pretty far to make me angry.
Both of us are quite capable of offending people.
Yeah.
But we don't usually really take offense that easily.
And I think one of the things is that most of the time when we offend people, we don't realize we're doing it.
Well, yeah.
I don't, anyway. I mean,
sometimes you mean to admit it.
Sometimes I actually probably often, like with this COVID-19 thing, stupidity gets on my nerves. So I see someone who's all scared of being around other people with their masks and stuff and wrapped up. And I tend to move toward them and get real close to them and talk to them just to push their buttons. I do like pushing buttons, but
yeah,
I seriously, it's happened over the years that people come to me and say, you did this and this caused... Like, I had a really good friend who was mad at me for, like, 10 years. I didn't even know it. And when I found out, I didn't apologize, but I called him up and I said, okay, let's right this wrong, whatever it was. But that happens to me a lot. People say out of the blue, you offended this person or you made them angry, and that's why they haven't talked to you in years or months or weeks or whatever. But I generally don't mean to, and the reason it happens, I think, is because I look at it and think, well, that wouldn't offend me.
Yeah.
Why would it offend someone else?
Yeah. There's a do unto others kind of hue to this that I think this comes up with between my wife and me sometimes. She will say something like, "How would you feel if?"
Yeah.
And I don't really usually answer that question because
that's going to make her angrier.
Well, she might not even be angry when she's asking it. She might be asking it on behalf of somebody else that I'm,
Right.
might have offended. But the answer that I would give is not what she presumes often. That,
right.
Because I tend not to feel things in that way that as though I'm being personally attacked or something like that, even when people are personally attacking me.
Right. For example, I spend all day trying to make this meal that I want everyone to love. And then I say, here, try this. And if somebody tries it and they make a funny face and say, this tastes disgusting, that would not offend me in the least. I just,
Yeah.
Okay, they don't like it.
Me neither.
It's gross.
Note to self, don't do that again.
On the other hand, I do take a little bit of offense when I spend all day making something and someone won't try it.
Yeah, okay,
Actually,
I see that.
I don't think I take offense.
It's not offense,
irritates
it's
me.
more like,
That's stupid. I mean, you could at least try. How do you know you don't like it?
Right.
But I was arguing with Jason about this point last week, and that's why I wanted to do a podcast about it. Because I was saying that his claim is that more often than not, when someone is offended by something, they are offended out of ignorance. And if they knew that the other person didn't mean to offend them, then they wouldn't feel offended. And I think he's mostly right.
I think they're right. I'm not sure that the way he worded it is quite right. It's that last part. If they knew that the person didn't intend to offend them. But sometimes it's not, people don't get offended because they feel like you meant to offend them. Yeah. They get offended because they feel like you're presuming on their time or taking them for granted or treating them as inferior or any of those other things. Those are the reasons people get offended. They don't necessarily think you mean to offend them.
Well, here's how the argument went. I said that that's probably true for most people, I think what his argument was that more often than not, you didn't have reason to be offended.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
I think that might have been, I got to watch it now because I'm quoting him, and now I can't quite remember.
Oh, that's okay.
But I do remember.
If he wants to set the record straight, he can come on our show.
Yeah, he's welcome to come on and record with us. But I made the point that usually it's the other way around with me. More often, I should have been offended when I'm not. Mm-hmm. And he laughed at that, and we kind of yelled a little bit back and forth over it. And I challenged him. I said, "You tell me the last time I was angry or offended at something." And eventually, it came down. He said, "Well, just today." There was an incident with Dad, and I had responded in a certain way, and he said his point was that I was offended or angered by that, and it really surprised me because he took my response as me being angry, and I wasn't angry. I wasn't offended or angry or anything. I was inwardly laughing over the incident, and he thought that I was angry. And it occurs to me that a lot of times maybe we think people are offended when they're not.
And maybe they're not. Oh, that's a good point.
Because last 2 times I've been angered by something, it was over it was justified, I think. And the problem is my anger came later, like the next day or hours later.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of like the result
like
of
a delayed
thinking about it.
Yeah, a lot of times I don't realize that I'm being challenged or that someone's doing something against me until later.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's like the reverse of what I was always like growing up.
Oh, right.
I mean, you
Could be.
remember
Yeah,
how I
that's,
was growing
yeah.
up. I could get angry about anything. I was like an angry person.
You could get angry. Yeah, that you could get angry just because somebody suggested to you that you do whatever it is you were about to do anyway.
Right. I have always been that way, and I'm much more like you at this point where it doesn't bother me. Nothing bothers me anymore. Even sometimes when I should be bothered.
Yeah.
But you've always been that way.
Yeah, I guess I have. I don't know why.
Can't remember too many times growing up that you actually got angry at a person, or at least enough to show anger.
Yeah. But that kind of made me a little bit of bully fodder, though, too.
Say that again?
That kind of made me a little bit of bully fodder. I got bullied when I was a kid.
Oh, okay. Bully fodder. Okay.
So, maybe it would have been better if I'd, been able to show. I got into a couple of fights, though.
Well, I was always angry, and I got bullied just as much, so I don't think it would have helped you.
Oh, okay. It's just because we were angles.
Well, of course, you were a bigger kid than I was. I was kind of skitty. I kind of begged for it.
Well, that's a good point, though, about sometimes you don't realize the right response until later on. And sometimes you don't realize that you ought to be offended at something, but it's also interesting how we will say we will have a manner of speaking that kind of means something to us and I think this is true within every layer of sort of civil society, families, neighborhoods, cities, and so forth, regions, whatever, that things have meanings that other people might think ought to have a different meaning. I'll give you an example. There was once when you had been bugging me and I had kept promising to bring a certain CD over when I came.
TV.
And I forgot it yet again. Yeah, CD. You remember those CDs, those little discs that you used to have to, with music on them?
CD. I thought you said
CD.
I thought you said Tango Victor instead of Charlie Delta.
Yeah. Charlie Delta. So a CD, a compact disc.
Okay.
And for those of you who have never experienced a compact disc, once upon a time they were all the rage. They replaced cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Go look that
which
up on Google if you don't know what that is.
Vinyl albums, which replaced
right.
8-tracks, which replaced reel-to-reel.
Oh, vinyl albums. By the way, okay, not quite a beer of the week, but it's what I'm drinking right now. It's a beer that I got in Michigan called Liquid Vinyl. It's a Russian Imperial Stout by Arbor Brewing Company. Anyway, you had been after me to bring this CD, and I kept saying, yeah, I'm going to bring it, and I forgot it yet again. And you were like, Danny, you jerk. Just like that,
Yeah.
Well, my wife, on my behalf, took great offense at that.
Did she?
And she was, completely befuddled that I didn't.
Yeah.
And she actually came back to him and said later, oh, yeah, I just didn't realize how you guys were, that, it doesn't mean anything,
Here's the funny... Okay, in this instance, probably just your wife not being used to the way we talk to each other is what confused her on it. But I was... let's see, I got to do this carefully. I was with another one of our relatives, and we were both addressing our boss because we sometimes work together.
Okay.
And he said something to me that to me it was just something. We were talking, and it wasn't even a personal subject. It was an argument or / debate over something that just was completely irrelevant. And a week or two later, she approached me and said, I would have never let him talk to me. I cannot believe you didn't sock him. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I could not remember. She might not have said sock, but she was surprised that I let someone talk to me like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what she was talking about. And then we recounted the conversation, and I thought, why would anyone be offended by that?
Mm-hmm.
It surprised me.
Did she ever get you to realize why she thought you should be offended by it?
No.
Or are you still befuddled?
I'm befuddled why she would be offended if someone talked to her that way. Because I would talk to people that way, and people talk to me that way, and to me it's just
a way of talking.
Just nothing to be offended over. It is what it is.
Right.
But this is someone who knows me and knows how hard it is to offend me, and still she thought that I should be offended.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I guess some people it's like, I don't know, they're all about, I don't know, context or something.
Right. Well, the question is, what do you do about it? If you're one of those people who are constantly angry, first of all, could a person like that ever realize that they are too easily offended?
Yeah. Is it ever possible for them to, But
I was.
Yeah. So did you just have a gradual personality change, or was there kind of like an aha moment?
It was gradual, but it was aha. And I one day realized that that nobody sees an event the same.
Right.
And
right.
We have a conversation. No one's going to see it exactly the way I saw it. And so if they're not upset about it, there's no reason I should be upset about it.
I was in Barnes & Noble once, and I happened upon, I don't remember even exactly the title of this book. It was about, I don't know whether it was about learning to live more stress-free or tension-free or whatever, but it's something that caught my eye in regards to somebody else. Maybe it was one of my kids or something, I don't know, but I happened to notice the book, and I picked it up and started leafing through it. And the guy who wrote the book, I had to go look it up sometime, but there was a chapter that was kind of interesting, and he had a formula for dealing with people who not just offend you, but even just like dealing with injustice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the formula, it was really a formula for, you could almost call it like empathy is like at the center of it if you break it down. But what it was, you start with people should not do whatever. Okay.
As your way of thinking about things, or
well, whatever. I mean, assume it's the truth. But in this situation, this person should do this because, and then you come up with the because. Now, the thing is, you're not giving it moral justification for doing that. What you're doing is giving it human explanation. So, for example, I don't know, people should not punch people in the nose. But in this situation, this guy should punch me in the nose because he felt like I heavily insulted his mother or something like that. You know what I mean? You fill out the formula.
Right.
And it could be that the basis for the action is wrong. It could be that you have to do a multiple thing. He felt like I heavily insulted his mother, and he believes that punching someone in the nose is the right response to that. Well, maybe I think he's wrong on both counts. Maybe he is wrong on both counts, but at least it provides a basis for me saying, okay, given everything in his life, this is the expected response. And maybe it would be even better to say you don't do the formula, but he should do this in this situation because, rather you use the formula, but I should expect him to do this in this situation because, and then you give the reasons. It's just kind of something you said kind of triggered that memory of this book that I was reading. But anyway, it is often about context, and I think it brings in a little bit of truth to what Jason was saying, that people who really get offended often do so out of some degree of ignorance.
Yeah.
if you say, you know, I know eventually we're going to go there, so let's go ahead and bring it up. Let's look at the what I tend to call the liberal
I'm going to get coffee
addiction.
while you talk.
Go ahead. What I tend to call the liberal addiction to being offended. And it's almost as if you say that a particular action is wrong, is immoral, is, not the right way to run a society, whatever it is, whether you're talking about something systematic like socialism or something specific like homosexuality. You say it's wrong, and the liberal response to that often is to take offense on the basis that you're personally targeting them for some kind of moral judgment because of the fact that either they're doing whatever it is you're saying is wrong, or that they disagree with you about what you're saying, or whatever. And I think that this, this book would be a good thing for them to practice. That they, even if they assume they're right, they ought to at least be able to see why you think you're right. He should say that homosexuality is wrong because he's a Christian and he believes in the Bible, and the Bible says it's wrong. And, so that's got to be, in order to be a integrated human being, in order to be a whole person that is not at interior war with himself, he has to believe this is wrong. That they should be able to see that. Often they don't. And I guess it's still a struggle with me to not feel, and I still often do feel, that there's kind of a addiction to being offended that's going on with a lot of people in society today.
Yeah. The funny thing is that it's not even that, it's not only that this person can't say it's wrong to be a homosexual. There's the modern liberal seems to think that everyone should agree with them. That it's offensive if you don't agree with them.
If you don't agree with them, exactly. That's the point. It's like they're looking for a reason to be offended, and so the one thing you can guarantee is that there's going to be people in the world that disagree with you about any given position you hold. And
right.
So in order to serve their need to be offended, they simply accept it. They treat it as though every person who disagrees with them is targeting them for judgment.
Yeah. As if there's some kind of attack.
Yeah, is attacking them. Right, exactly.
I think...
Now, I don't know whether that phenomenon has anything to do with the more person-to-person, easily taking offense kind of thing we've been talking about so far. That's what I'm struggling with. Is there a connection there, or are we talking about two completely different things?
I kind of don't think there is a connection. I think it is I think those are two different things, because I know plenty of people on a political subject are fine with people disagreeing with them, and even purposely
but they still get offended easily.
The subject, yeah, because they don't want to fight. But things like you said, if you say ignore them or belittle them or I don't know, insult their cooking, it becomes a huge deal. And I've I don't know, I remember being angry at some of the stupidest things, to the point where I'm like, I can't understand why I was angry about that. And then I kind of went through the change that I talked about. And then later, to give you an example, the kids were in the backyard playing, and I guess there were some other kids that they were kind of fighting with, throwing words back and forth. And I went back there hoping to make peace, and at the same time, my friend was with me. We went back there to make peace. At the same time, their father came out to do, I don't know what.
The same thing. Oh, okay.
I would assume.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah. One would
hope. We're talking, and it's kind of like, well, maybe those kids want to come over here and play with our kids, and then it's one big group of friends instead of two groups warring with each other. And, we talked, and the guy kept going back to, if I see this happen, then I can't remember how he put it, but it wasn't until later I realized he was threatening my kids with physical violence.
Oh.
It didn't occur to me that's what he was saying until, at the time it didn't occur to me that's what he was saying. I'm still of the mindset, let's get them all together, everybody play, everybody's nice, and there's no fight.
It's like you're on such a different plane than this
right.
kind of aggression. So, it didn't even occur to you.
Right. So we go in to say the rosary because it's rosary night. And the whole time I'm saying the rosary, I'm thinking, what the hell was that guy talking about? Is he threatening me? And I'm getting angrier and angrier. This is one of the last times I've been offended. One of the last. And finally we get done with the rosary. We get the pizza on order because we're going to have pizza. And I go outside, and my friend's standing there, the friend that was with me. Mm-hmm. And he's in his kind of like pajama setup. And he's just kind of standing there on his back porch. And I went over and I was about to start talking. He said, I think that guy was threatening us. He said, I'm in the shower.
It took both of you that long to realize.
And this guy, I'm starting to think, what the hell was he saying to us? I had to go out there and punch him in the nose. But it didn't occur to me that's what was happening. And those kinds of things happen often now, to where people have to point out to me, hey, that guy was either threatening you or that guy was doing something against you. You don't seem to realize that.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
and I don't know which is better.
Well, I think if you're somebody with an impulsive nature, it's probably better that you don't realize it immediately. Because then you will have had at least a little bit of time to reflect before you would act. At the same time, there's obviously, like if he's chasing one of your kids with a baseball bat, doggone it, there's the dog. If he's chasing one of your kids with a baseball bat, it's pretty obvious. It's time to step in and do something. But when it's still just words and it hasn't come to anything yet, and if you're impulsive, it's probably good that you don't quite realize the gist of it until you've had a little bit of time to reflect.
Well, that's the other thing. The other more recent time that I've been offended was exactly that. Someone was doing something against one of my kids. And it wasn't really until the next day that I realized how serious it was. And that maybe I should have gone ahead and kicked this guy's ass.
Somehow, yeah.
But, I guess that those two times in the past 10 years compared to maybe once a day being offended and saying things that cause you to do things like lose your job or, go to jail. I guess it's better that I'm a little slow on the offense.
Get sent to bed. Because this started when you were young.
Yeah. But there's so many people out there who make life-changing decisions based on anger that that it's like, wow, you not just doing something extreme at the moment, but people who decide I'm going to be angry about this and I'm not going to leave that anger until I don't know when, and who say cut off relationships entirely. That
the kind of willfully holding a grudge.
Yeah, and I see that a lot in other people, and it seems like I see it more and more with younger generation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of sad and kind of a shame. But, I don't know. You say younger generations, but there were incidents with the generation above ours of people going for long periods of time not talking to each other because of something somebody said that offended them.
Yeah, you're right. Now that I think of it, Mom would talk about like her brothers and sisters going into a 10-year battle
Yeah.
where they don't talk to each other, and it's like, and it's always
And
something over something really stupid.
Yeah. Her point always being that, life is too short to be so offended that you won't talk to your brothers and sisters.
I guess we could at least consider ourselves lucky because we grew up in a household where people forgave each other pretty quickly when there were, words thrown back and forth.
Yeah,
or even fists.
Fist, whatever. And we forgave when we were kids because we were told that if we didn't forgive, we'd have to actually kiss. And that was gross. Nobody wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So we forgave each other.
I guess what I was hoping would come out of this is, what do you do with someone who is offended? And I really never figured out an answer. When someone's when someone's angry at you, there's different approaches you can take. You can say, I'm sorry for having done that, and maybe explain why you did it and why it shouldn't have offended them. But there are some times when...
sounds like, so now you're going to tell me how I should feel.
Right. Yeah, and it seems like most of the time when you do that, that's how the person takes it.
Yeah. And then what you're really trying to say is, I understand why you got offended, but what you thought I meant isn't what I meant.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, for some reason, it's never received that way when somebody is just one of those people who's prone to be offended about stuff.
Right. And then, there are some times when it's like, I don't see why you're offended by this, but I can't change what happened, and I wouldn't change it if I could, because this is how I meant it. And I'm sorry that offends you, but this is how it is, and it's always going to be that way.
Yeah.
And we're never going to see eye to eye on this.
Mm-hmm. Some people have a hard time with that too. It's like, it's weird because for some reason they're offended. Maybe they don't even know why they're offended at whatever it is you said or did or whatever. But then you come up with something like that, and what you're, it's like, okay, what you're basically saying is, hey, I said something that offended you. I'm sorry that you reacted so badly to what I said.
Yeah.
Or, it's like there's some people with whom there just is no winning them back over. You just got to let time kind of dissolve the offense. If there's, if it's somebody that you have, a friendship with or something that you want to maintain. Of course, if it's somebody that's just kind of a acquaintance that you don't really have to interact with, you don't maybe care as much, but
right.
But yeah,
still, you don't like
I don't
to
think there's
burn
a magic
bridges.
formula for that. Well, exactly. So I don't think there's a magic formula. The best you can say is like, hey, I'm sorry that I offended you. I'll try not to, and leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes the more you try to talk it out, the worse it's going to get.
The worse it gets, yeah.
This person wants you to feel like you've done something wrong, maybe, or they want you to see things the way they see them, and sometimes it's just not possible. It's like we're looking at this whole thing in two different ways, and it's almost like we're from two different universes. Yeah. And we can't see it the same way.
I think sometimes... See, because I had a really hard time sort of realizing this about other people, because for me, it's like one of those, like, you don't notice your own faults in other people. I will, like, keep arguing at a point to show that I'm right about this, whatever it is I said, did, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And you remember the guy, I forget his name, up at the Knights of Columbus Hall, that I used to
Hyab?
clean. Yeah, Hyab, Mr. Hyab.
Yeah.
So he was my boss. Yeah, well, he was.
I take some red pop.
I was,
He'd always try to sell that
he
red
said
pop.
something, and after like several backs and forths, he just said, I never met somebody that was, let's see, how did he say it? I never met somebody that worked so hard to show a way that they was right.
Yeah.
And, it's funny. That's one of those things that actually stuck with me.
Yeah.
But the thing is this, once I realized, yeah, doggone it, I really do that. It also kind of opened my eyes to, there may be times when I've offended somebody, and then one or two steps into the back and forth trying to explain it, the issue is no longer what I said or didn't say or what I meant or didn't mean. The issue is maybe that they're just plain embarrassed and they're trying to find a way to save face. And I've just got to kind of back out of the argument, let them do that, and let some time pass.
That's true. I wish there was an easier answer, but I think a lot of times your only option is to pray for the person.
Yep.
And maybe pray for the relationship, but pray for the person and don't make it a prayer that God help
please
this
help them see how wrong they are.
Yeah, because I mean, there was a time when that's how I prayed, and if it's somebody that you care about, that there's a friendship or some kind of relationship, pray that you're the person that they need you to be. Pray that you be God's instrument for whatever it is they need. Yeah. So here we've got a case where let's move into the current events.
Okay, so social
we've got
offense,
George Floyd,
cultural phenomenon offense that we touched on a little bit earlier.
Right. There's a guy pulled over. They're going to apprehend him. Eventually, they get him over to a car where we can't see, and somehow the guy ends up on the ground. There's a cop with his knee on the guy's neck.
This is like the first video that came out that caused the big stir and sensation.
Right.
This cop's kneeling there with his knee on his neck. The guy's groaning and everything. It's pretty clear that the guy is handcuffed.
Yeah.
In this, even though you can't see his hands, the sort of lay of his shoulders and that kind of stuff, it's pretty clear that he's handcuffed. There's another cop just kind of casually standing around. And these cops, they're not like angry beating him kind of thing. They're like calm. They're just, he's kneeling on his neck. And the guy's, oh, my neck, let me up. I can't breathe. My stomach hurts. That kind of stuff.
And there's people there saying, hey, the guy can't breathe. You're going to kill him.
Even after he stopped moving. They're like, and in fact, they're like, what, did he just kill him? He isn't moving anymore. Stuff like that going on. And these cops are just standing around, just so calm. And you're thinking, okay, what is really going on here? What are they waiting for a specific thing? What's really weird is that a few times it sounded like the cop was telling the guy, get up and get in the car. Even while he's kneeling on him.
That's what I thought I heard. I remember the guy kept saying, I couldn't tell if it was the cop or a bystander.
Saying,
and
get up,
I
get in
heard
the car.
The guy say, I can't get up.
Yeah.
They're on top of me or something like that. I can't get up.
So maybe it was a bystander saying that.
I don't know at this point.
Yeah.
And I think
it was
probably
weird.
body cams are the only way we'll find out.
Which I think they've finally released, haven't they?
They've released some body cams, not all of them.
Okay.
I think. I stopped looking. After I saw the first video, unless there's another body cam video or something where we hear the cop call him the N-word or something, I didn't see any racial component to this.
Yeah. Now, let's, people who don't know us, you and I both have been kind of equally finding ourselves on sort of back and forth, but I think as the situation deserves it, between, hey, you idiots, let the cops do their job, and, hey, you idiot cops, why are you so incompetent at your job, and look at you bastard cops, how abusive you are with your power. I mean, we have not been afraid to call out any of those situations.
Yeah, and it gets harder and harder because when there are things like riots, suddenly we realize the need for someone to have authority to restore social order. Right. On the other hand, I have many experiences with cops where it's like, you're a petty tyrant.
Yeah.
Yeah, either incompetent or just a bad person.
Yeah. Now, see,
And
the reason I bring up incompetence is because to me, it totally looked like these cops were just like stupid dunderheads acting out of complete incompetence.
That's kind of the feeling I got. Even maybe possibly lack of training.
Yeah.
Like maybe, I don't think you're supposed to put your knee on a guy's neck, and especially keep it there after he's not struggling anymore.
Well, and see, that's the thing. I mean, that, for example, would be a maneuver that I would expect to subdue a guy who is both unrestrained and uncooperative until you can get cuffs on him. But the guy already had cuffs on him.
Yeah, and I think when he got to the car, he had already had cuffs. They put the cuffs on him like 5 minutes before that.
I think they showed the cuffs going on him. He was against that wall. Did you see the one from the security camera? So it said camera 2 or whatever. And it was annoying because the YouTube, all the action's taking place in the upper right corner, and YouTube kept posting like things up there to click on to go to related stuff.
Yeah.
So it kept obscuring what was going on. But it looked like he had the cuffs on him as he brought him over, put him against the wall, and then later stood him up, put the cuffs on him, and then walked him across the street and down to where I presume another cop car was waiting. Now, Did you see the one that was like from the other side of the cop car where there was something going on inside the car before they had him on the ground?
No, I didn't see that one.
Okay, I think I should, if I can find this. There's one that events leading up, I don't have it right here. Well, I'll have to send it to you and you can maybe put it on our site or whatever. But it was shown, you don't actually ever see him. So this is one of those things where, okay, do you really trust that this is what this is? But it looks like the same cops, and it shows them like with the doors open in the back seat, like reaching in and trying to do something, and there's clearly some kind of struggle going on in the back seat of that cop car. And the claim is that these are before he was thrown on the ground and the cop started kneeling on his neck. And from that, it kind of led me to speculate, speculate is maybe too weak a word, but the impression that I developed is that they were trying to arrest him. They went to put him in the car, and he started throwing a fit and struggling and laying down and kicking and such that they couldn't even get the car doors shut. And so they decided, well, we're going to teach you a lesson. They pulled him out, they threw him on the ground and started kneeling on him. The problem, and again, kneeling on his neck was completely inappropriate. But the other problem is, and this is where I think the incompetence comes in, kneeling on him until what? What we do know, what I think we can judge, is that it was inappropriate and stupid for the cops to subdue him in quite that way, given that he was already in cuffs. I mean, there are things that I'm sure that one of those cars had some zip ties. They could have hog-tied him or something,
Yeah.
Let him struggle, whatever, but they didn't have to do that.
I would assume that there's some kind of procedure for a guy who's maybe throwing a fit and won't calm down and won't stay
get into the back of the
still.
car or whatever. Yeah.
I would assume there's something they can do for that.
Right.
They did have tasers, didn't they? Why didn't they use those?
Well, tasers might not work. I'll tell you, I went with a couple of my sons on a Cub Scout tour of the Johnson County Sheriff's, detention area and stuff. And the guy who was there, he's really good about talking to the boys and stuff. And he said that the thing about tasers, and this is why I think it may not work if somebody's jacked up on drugs, but tasers do not incapacitate someone. It is a device to compel someone to obey. And the way it works is that when you get tased, and these guys, the sheriffs and deputies that work for them, they all had to be tased. Yeah. And so he was able to describe it from personal experience. He said, when you get tased, your whole body, it's it's not painful, but it's extremely unpleasant. Your whole body lets go. Usually you pee yourself, and you may even, do the other thing.
Yeah.
And it's like everything is like taken from you in terms of control. And the tasers themselves are designed so that once you trigger it, you can't untrigger it. It goes for 5 seconds and then restarts. And during that 5 seconds, it's not pain, but it's a different kind of agony. But then once it ends, there's zero residue to the effect. It's like you're not feeling like, it's not like when you get whacked and you feel pain afterwards and or anything like that.
You're still dazed.
As soon as it ends, you're like, oh, okay, now I'm back. And I think the reason that they insist that they get tased is so that they realize that this is not going to knock a person out. It's not going to incapacitate them. But what it's going to do is convince them that maybe they should do what you said so they don't have to go through that again. It's designed to persuade compliance. That's what tasers are for. Now, if you take someone who's jacked up on drugs, you don't know it's necessarily going to have that effect.
Right.
So that could be a reason they wouldn't use the tasers.
The problem is this has sparked protests, which I don't understand why they're like in Cincinnati. Why are people protesting in Cincinnati? What are they protesting? What do they want?
Here's the thing. It's sparked. Yeah, I'm not sure what they want because the guy was arrested already.
Right.
What are they protesting saying he shouldn't get the benefit of a trial? We need to have a lynch mob to go and grab him and string him up. Is that what the protests are asking for? I don't know. But here's the thing.
And if they did that, would that solve the protesting problem?
Would they stop? Well, here's the thing. There's the protests, and then there's the looting and riots.
Yeah.
Do you guys get that in Cincinnati now? I mean, it's horrible in Indy.
Yeah, there was some of that.
It's still going on in Indianapolis.
Well, last night we heard that they were gathering in Western Hills Plaza.
Okay.
I don't know if the cops got a handle on things or not. I didn't. I mean,
that's pretty close.
Yeah, I got my
Western
gun
Hills
out.
Plaza.
That's like 3 or 4 blocks.
Yeah, that's walking distance.
So I don't understand why there aren't more dead protesters.
Well, and that's where that's something that I want to get to, because this is one of those things where, and that's why I was careful to point this out at the beginning, that that you and I both are very ready to call out cops on being bullies, on being abusive, and on just being plain incompetent. And I think this is a case of at least some of those. But that doesn't. The thing is that people, first of all, they make it into a racial thing, and you notice even the bystanders there from the recording, they were turning it racial already, even though nothing had happened to indicate that it was racial. It's like they were making it racial. The cops weren't. They were. And then, so now there's all this looting going on, and people are making that racial too. And there's some things that I want to say about that. One of which is, that's not about race, these lootings and riots. This isn't a racial thing. This is just plain animal behavior. These are people who, for whatever reason, have a inclination to just go wild and act like animals and tear things up. And this whole George Floyd thing, it's not a reason, it's an excuse for them to just give in to this animal impulse they have. It's not about race, it's about behavior. They're behaving like animals. And any other attempt to paint it any other way is just lipstick on a pig. I mean, this is just animal behavior. It's just wanton destruction and violence. It's not targeted. It's not for a reason. It's not designed to accomplish anything. It's not designed at all. They're just giving in to destructive impulses.
Here's the problem. I kind of compare it to the COVID-19 thing, where you've got politicians and leaders whose job it is to deal with this kind of stuff. And as in the COVID-19, they're so scared someone might ridicule them for doing the wrong thing
that they do the wrong thing.
They do terrible things. Yeah, they shut down the whole nation. And in this case, they're not moving against the protesters to a point where they can stop the riots.
Yeah.
Because they're scared of being called racist. At some point, we got to quit being scared and
just do what we need to do to
get stuff done,
protect property. Now, that kind of brings up the second point. They're scared to be called racists for stopping the protesters, and that's fine. Yep, that's fine. I'm going to keep talking. Okay, so I said at the beginning, this is not about race. This is about just people acting like animals. But if you want to try to make it about race, if you want to somehow assert some kind of identity between these looters and rioters and non-whites, then I'm going to tell you where that conversation goes. That conversation goes this way. Oh, okay. Non-whites cannot help acting like animals. That's why whites have to be in charge. That's where that conversation goes if you want to make this about race. I don't want to make it about race. I don't think it's about race. I think it's about young, angry people just wanting to act like animals, and this is an excuse to do it. And it has nothing to do with race, and it has nothing to do with racial inequality. It has nothing to do with racism within police departments or anything like that. That's all just an excuse so that they can feel like they've got some kind of justification. What it's about is them wanting to act like animals. But if you want to make it about race, then you are making a case that is, for something that I don't think you want to go there in a conversation. So that's the second thing that I would want to say about this. Now, the third thing that I'd want to say is that, this is a podcast about Catholic things. And so I think it's worth...
All right, I'm back.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I'm starting the third thing that I was kind of say about these rioters. This is a podcast about Catholic things. And so it might be worth a little bit talking about, from a Catholic perspective, what kind of response we might be able to have to these rioters and looters in terms of their destruction of people's property, their places of business. There was a fireman, a black fireman, as it turns out, who had just spent his life savings on a bar that he was going to open up. He couldn't open it up quite on schedule because of the COVID thing. He was going to open up in June. It's gone now. Destroyed. His life savings because of these riots.
That's the thing. Obviously we've always had the death penalty was used a whole lot more in the beginning days of America.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a time when if you stole someone's horse,
for example,
that was punishable by death.
Horse theft was that was somebody's livelihood.
Because that was a person's livelihood. That's how most people made money by use of a horse somehow, whether it's going to another part of the town or going to your fields, plowing your fields, whatever. You needed that horse in order to live. And if someone took that horse, you just took their livelihood.
Now, taking that idea, there's a couple more points that, our country particularly is established as what I'm going to call a militia nation. And what that means is that because within in the context of when the country was kind of founded and put together, the militia meant all of the men who were normal citizens. It wasn't a military body. It was the pool of men who could be drawn into a military body, but the militia was the ordinary citizens. And our country was founded on the idea that the militia, the ordinary citizens, are the primary defense for our country. Now, in terms of things like foreign invaders and that kind of stuff, of course, but also in terms of, maintaining, the local police. That's why sheriffs have always been able to deputize men and form posses, as needed for situations and protecting our individual homes. Now, we think about this from a Catholic perspective, and I know that where a lot of people's minds want to go is, things like just war theory. And they'll go into, about, oh yeah, just war and you got to meet these criteria and that kind of stuff. Just war theory only applies to when you're as a nation, if you're going to wage war on another nation. It doesn't apply to defense. Defense is a wholly different thing. And the concept of defense, unlike war, is not something from a Catholic perspective that rests on the authority of the state.
Right.
In fact, Innocent IV, a pope in the 13th century, had this to say: "It is permissible for anyone to wage war in self-defense or to protect property, nor is this properly called war, but rather defense." That's the Catholic position on this, and that's the Catholic position on these rioters. From a Catholic position, and from a full position, you'd have to consider various jurisprudential aspects and kind of formulate what would be. You'd have to consider various outcomes and possibilities and stuff, but from a Catholic perspective, it would not be unfitting for the citizens of these cities where their shops are just being destroyed and torn apart to post themselves on the rooftops with rifles and prevent this from happening. Again, the law has its own thing to say about this, okay? I'm not talking about the law, and I'm not urging people to go do this. But if we want to get down to it and look at this from a Catholic perspective, this would not be an unfitting thing for people to do.
Especially considering the fact that these riots aren't just about the destruction of property. They attack people and beat people.
Yeah,
and sometimes kill people.
Yeah, we've got the one report. I don't know what city was in. Somebody threw a Molotov cocktail into a guy's car. The guy got out with some minor injuries, but he might not have.
They're trying to kill him.
Yeah,
that's murder.
That's exactly. These riots, if they are not put down, the riots themselves, because those who are participating in them are not acting in any kind of rational way. They're not, thinking and then figuring out a way to do something and then acting like they're just giving themselves over to animal impulses.
Right.
If the riots are not put down, the riots themselves stand in threat of human life. And even just the defense of property, as we've seen from that quote from Pope Innocent IV, is sufficient justification to engage in warlike behavior, or what he says, if it's in the defense of your property, it's not even considered war, it's just defense.
Yeah.
Everyone has that right.
I've got a wife and kids, and next door to me, I got my older parents, and on the other side of me, there's an old lady.
Yeah.
You got to protect things. So I was ready to protect if anything came my way, probably someone would have gotten shot, and then I would go to jail, I guess.
You might go to jail. But you might have gone to jail saving someone's life.
These things are happening in cities that are ruled by Democrats mostly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they can get away with it.
Okay, the mayor in Minneapolis came out with a statement, I think on Friday, that it was just so irresponsible. That he started talking about the fact that he didn't talk about the cop who did something wrong. He didn't even talk much about the event itself. He talked about the fact that African Americans have had to endure 400 years of oppression.
Which had nothing to do with the incident.
Yeah.
And which has nothing to do with the riots.
Right. It just seems like something...
he's feeding them their excuses. They're not looking for reasons. They're looking for excuses, and he's feeding them excuses.
If the inner city black man wants to escape this kind of irresponsible police action, then the first thing he has to do is quit electing Democrats.
That's true.
Because Democrats give way too much power to the police force. As long as the police are enforcing their laws. Mm-hmm. For example, in Minneapolis, I think you weren't allowed to work a short time ago. Isn't that right? Didn't somebody get arrested for going to work?
Oh,
I know in Cincinnati, people are getting arrested for going to work. Or for if you eat without sitting down, if you eat while standing up, you can be arrested.
Wait, seriously? Like if you're walking down the street eating a hot dog?
No, if you go to a restaurant, you have to be seated in order to eat. You can't eat standing up. That way they maintain the 6 feet of distance and...
you have to be in your seat when you're eating.
Just dumb laws.
Yeah, just stupid stuff.
And we've given policemen the power to arrest people for doing these things.
For just absolutely stupid.
That is the problem.
They're not even laws. They're just orders
there's
by
no
mayors. It's not a law. It's just an order by a mayor, and now policemen are empowered with enforcing that.
The police and the politicians should be subject to the laws, not to their demands. And it's the whole estate is sad, where it's impossible to pick a side in this because you see wrong on both sides.
That's the thing. It's like I can't pick a side between the rioters and the cops who killed George Floyd. It's like you both should be ashamed of yourselves. We can't bring George Floyd back to life, but we do have a responsibility to stop the riots.
Yeah.
That's not picking sides with the cops. That's picking sides with common citizens and business owners.
Yeah. Here's the thing is we still go back to the fact that there are so many incompetent and power-hungry cops out there. And I don't even know if there is a way to deal with that. But the fact that George Floyd was black, I never saw anything to make me believe that this was happening because he was black and the guy was a white cop.
So think some like similarly statured. He was a little bit tall, wasn't he? Think of some. He was a little bit tall, wasn't he? From the pictures, didn't you get the impression that he? I mean,
looked like both guys were pretty big.
I'm trying to think. Figure some similarly statured, similar physique, white guy in a wife beater t-shirt with long, greasy hair and scuzzy, face, and maybe a couple of tattoos on his arms, and the exact same scenario. You know what? I could see those cops doing exactly the same thing. I don't think there was a iota of racial involved, of
right
intent
that
in the
wasn't
original
a
incident. Exactly. I just don't think that mattered. That's everybody else reading into it because, and this is what I was talking about before, there's these people who are so addicted to being offended that they have to look for ways to be offended. They're hey, here's a way I can be offended. The guy's black who's being knelt on by the cops. Now I can be offended over the racism. It's not enough for me to be offended at police brutality.
I'll tell you what, if they wanted to fix the problem, and again, I don't think it's a racial problem. I don't think there are that many racial cops out there. And I don't know. But there are a lot of bad cops out there. Mm-hmm. Look, we've got a cousin who, they took him into the Price Hill district over there and broke his arm with a baton. This is after he had been cuffed, after he wasn't subdued because he wouldn't quit mouthing off. But they just took his arm,
but it was just his mouth.
Broke it.
It's not like he was kicking them. It's not like he was kicking them or struggling arrest or anything. He just was mouthing off.
He's kind of a small guy, so I don't know if kicking and stuff would have done anything anyway. But I do know that when I was around 15 or 16, I had kind of a mouth on me, and I was in Price Hill, and there were 2 cops passing by, and I yelled something to them.
Mm-hmm.
They pulled over, and they flat out told me, if you say one more word, we will take you to the jail, and we will break your arm.
Wow.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
And then you see our cousin actually got arrested, had a mouth on him, broken. Got his arm broken at the jail. And probably there was nothing he could do about it.
And I'm white, and our cousin is white, and the cops were white. There's
nothing racial.
There's a lot
of
bad cops out there.
Yeah. In fact, it sounds to me like that was kind of like systematic in the Price Hill precinct.
Yeah, it is.
It's like,
at the time, Price Hill was probably about half black, half white.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to solve some of these problems, what you could do is make the justice system more accessible to people without money.
Yeah.
If a cop goes into,
it's money.
Yeah.
Right.
If he goes into, Indian Hills and arrests a guy for no reason, or unjustly arrests him, or even unjustly, bothers him,
he wouldn't dream of it.
Right, because he would be sued.
Yeah.
But a poor guy can't do that. If I got arrested for something and the cop broke my face, there really isn't much I can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are some lawyers who might take cases, well, okay, if we win, and then I'll
sue the department
that fee, and that'll be my fee.
Right.
But if you got a poor guy who comes into a lawyer and says, I got a good case against this cop, and you can make a lot of money on this by representing me, he's not going to do it because the chances of him winning are really small.
Right.
But if cops were more subject to a legal system that poor people had access to, a lot of these problems would disappear overnight.
So
I think.
So systemically, how do you do that? Because you can't.
I don't know.
You can't prevent a lawyer from charging a lot of money for his time when he's good at what he does.
Right.
And you can't disallow people from being willing, people with money from being allowed to pay those lawyers. So it's one of those, yes, if we could do this, this would fix the problem, but it's a much harder, well, how do you accomplish that?
I know.
Yeah. But no, I think you're absolutely right.
I'm not even suggesting a fix. I'm just saying
it's not racial.
This is the reason that it happens.
Yeah.
And if we could change that part of American culture and American life, these kinds of problems probably would disappear.
Mm-hmm.
If cops were afraid of arresting someone who shouldn't be arrested, then...
or afraid of improperly handling someone when they did arrest them.
Right.
I mean, if they had, obviously they have to be able to subdue someone. Obviously they have to be able to arrest people. But, like what we saw in this video, it's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
They should be afraid. Especially in today's environment where everybody's got a cell phone. They're being filmed, and yet he just kind of nonchalantly keeps,
Right, he didn't seem to care. He knew he was being filmed.
Yeah.
That can't be the way you're supposed to handle a prisoner. So why was he still doing it?
Yeah, it's like, what is going on here?
It made no sense.
That's why I keep thinking there's going to be something else that comes out about this, because it just doesn't even make sense.
Right, because you're sitting there watching the guy go slower and slower until he's not responding at all, and you're yelling at the screen, get up off his neck, he's gonna die.
It is so bizarre. Yeah, I think you're right exactly and completely. There's the solution is to, the solution would be if somehow poor people had the same access to, the justice system that rich people have.
Yeah.
Irrespective of color.
Our brother-in-law did something that I don't know how much of this we can talk about. The cop was doing something that he thought was wrong, and he went to him and told the cop, I don't want you doing this. I think you're doing this against my will.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he said.
Yeah.
He didn't argue with the cop or anything. The cop arrested him.
Mm-hmm.
Then our brother gets involved. Yeah.
Okay.
Our brother gets involved and mouths off to him because he's like, I can't believe you just arrested this guy. He didn't do anything. And so they arrested him.
Okay.
Now they drive them both downtown to Cincinnati, the Hamilton County Justice Center. Outside of our, we live in Cheviot. This is a tiny little city next to Cincinnati.
Outside of Cincinnati,
so
yeah.
Cheviot takes them down to Hamilton County Justice Center. Now, while they're there, the people at the Justice Center are making jokes about the fact that Cheviot cops will bring people down there all the time and never follow up for convictions and never do anything afterwards.
They just take them down there?
They arrest people. Yeah, and then you process it and you get out and then there's a court date and you go to that court and the cop doesn't show up for the court date,
and
so you
acquitted.
win. Yeah. This is a normal thing, apparently. That's how Cheviot handles people, is by arresting them and then never following up for convictions.
And it's called harassment.
That's false arrest.
It's false arrest and harassment. Yeah. It's exactly.
If these cops were held liable for that, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah. They would only
if they
arrest
had to pay
someone when they
fines or
intended
get jail time for harassing people, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But they know, they could tell by looking at us that we weren't going to follow up like that because we didn't have the money for that.
Yeah.
If they thought we could, then they wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
I don't know. As far as cops behaving badly, I think that's the only answer I could come up with, because there is a problem. We can't act like there's not a problem. Right. I don't think it's racial, but there is a problem.
But there's a problem. Yeah, absolutely. But
now, I'm not going to say most cops are great cops, because I don't know if they are. And I'm not going to protect police in general the way a lot of people will, because cops put themselves on one side and we're on the other.
If most cops were great cops, they would put pressure on the ones who aren't great cops to fall in line and behave.
That too. So
I don't buy the most cops are great cops line even when people say it. I think cops are a necessary part of society. I think most police forces are, poorly managed in some manner, whether it's because they process idiots in, whether because they have people that whether they attract people that are just power hungry or whatever it is.
Especially in liberal cities.
Yeah, which is the irony when you look at, situations like this one.
Another thing that I hear, because lately there's been a lot of talk about the fact that you have criminal elements in cities and they can't do anything about them because the citizens of those cities will not come to the police or talk to the police.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the problems is that police have set up a situation where they are against the citizens, no matter what, whether it's protecting them from, thieves or keeping people from not wearing seatbelts. They've set up a situation where no one wants to deal with a cop.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the cops are out to get you one way or the other.
Why do we have laws about seatbelts? The cop should not be able to arrest me for not wearing a seatbelt. The politicians have set this up, and the cops have followed suit. A lot of them do anyway. They give tickets wherever they can, and I don't know. I guess it's like you said. It's hard. You can't take sides with any of this, but as of right now, this second, we got to stop these riots. They're destroying people's property, and people are getting hurt. Well, we've talked about anger and we've talked about George Floyd. There are a couple other things.
Okay.
This is related. Donald Trump has announced that he's going to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. Designating, well, this is how the NBC News reports it on the Wiki News. Designating domestic terrorist groups is not permitted under U.S. law. I don't know exactly what that means.
Designating... okay. So a terrorist organization, to be designated as a terrorist organization for like certain federal handling and
I guess things like wiretapping and
that kind of
that.
stuff. It has to be some foreign organization.
Yeah.
So I guess the idea is that if that foreign organization, then any country that gives quarter to that foreign organization is then subject to additional, restrictions about maybe exports and other business dealings and stuff like that. So, okay, so apparently, according to what you're reading, the president is not allowed to designate domestic organizations as terrorist organizations, even if they are.
Yeah.
So if you had a true local terrorist organization, I mean, let's say something that everybody would agree on.
The Shiviot anarchist group or something, or the KKK, let's say.
Yeah, let's say, or Shiviot skinheads or something like that. Doesn't I'm sure the FBI has some kind of designation for those.
Yeah. Another thing is I'm not entirely convinced that Antifa is domestic.
Oh, that's true. The fact that they operate domestically,
money from people like George Soros,
and they might actually have their organizing principles outside of the country. They might not be a domestic organization at all. The domestic part is just where they're trying to foment the agitation and stuff.
But they are claiming responsibility for all the looting and arson and rioting.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So
that's going on now?
I don't see a problem with what he's doing.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know.
To me, that makes them terrorists. I mean, they're terrorizing.
Yeah. What else you caught?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I guess we'll see how that goes. It's not easy to have to deal with these kinds of issues. Mm-hmm. We saw how Obama dealt with it. And it's going to be interesting over the next week to see how Donald Trump deals with it. I have more trust in Trump than Obama, but then again, this is a local issue. It's up to Mike DeWine to deal with this, not Donald Trump.
Yeah, true. Right.
And Mike DeWine can't deal with anything. He's an idiot. He shut down the whole state over a flu-like virus.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. What do you do? I guess we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm sure a lot of people are in the same position as us, and it's like, look, if they come to my house, I'm just going to start shooting.
Yeah,
I'm not letting them burn down my house or put a firebomb in my car or anything else,
or the neighborhood even. I mean, it's
or the neighbors. Yeah, if I see them
walking down the street threatening to go in people's houses, help protect your neighbors. And everybody should be doing that.
Right. If everybody did that, I think these problems would go away pretty quick.
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Huge swarms of desert locusts are destroying crops in India.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. They're calling it the country's worst plague in 3 decades.
Wow.
At the same time, China and India are kind of butting heads on the Himalayan border.
Oh, okay.
So might be some troop action there. I don't even know what it's over. I think both of them are claiming that it's their territory.
Okay, so it's a border dispute.
They might be fighting over that. So I guess we'll see what happens. It doesn't really affect us a whole lot, but
don't expect it to.
Except we have a lot of crap being made in China and in India, which hopefully will change soon anyway. But speaking of which, Mike Pompeo has announced to Congress that Hong Kong is no longer
autonomous.
How do I say that word? Autonomous.
Yeah. Right.
Autonomous from China.
So that's been going on.
They are no longer their own territory.
So they are now part of China.
That's how we should consider them.
As our dealings with them, when we're dealing with them, we're dealing with China.
Now, you remember way back, I guess this was during Bush's day, when we're, quote, trying to introduce capitalism to China. And the thought was that the Chinese citizenry will get a taste for that economic freedom, and it will lead China away from communism. And it didn't happen.
No, that was a stupid idea.
Hong Kong did have capitalism, though.
Yeah.
And it was a free, a state, a free state or a nation.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it was separated from the Chinese communism.
Yeah. And it thrived.
Right. And the citizens loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's gone now.
Yeah. And China, I think it incensed China that right there was such a shining example of economic freedom that, for all of their power, China couldn't match under their state-controlled economy.
Yeah. It's a shame that this is the way it's turning out. But you wish that these millennials would see this kind of thing happening and get a better understanding of communism and socialism and what it does to a nation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they don't.
The destructive powers. Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, there's a couple things with SpaceX.
SpaceX
Starship.
launch.
Well, there's a launch and an explosion.
Wait a minute.
There was
I didn't hear about the explosion.
It was a Starship prototype SN4.
Okay.
Sierra November 4 is destroyed in a large explosion during the static fire testing at the SpaceX South Texas launch site.
Okay.
So they weren't even launching it. They were testing.
They were testing it. They had an explosion.
It exploded.
Okay. So they've got some designs to work. This is okay. That's
in the same week,
but that's what testing
they launched,
is for.
Huh?
But that's what testing's for.
Right. So I don't think anyone died. It doesn't say
Right.
anyone died.
Okay.
But the same week, we launched Crew Dragon Demo 2, carrying two NASA astronauts, and we're taking them to the space station. I think this is the first time since the end of the space shuttle program
that we have
American
sent
astronauts.
to the space station. It is also this folks, to appreciate this, you should be thinking Kitty Hawk to appreciate the historical significance of this. This
Kitty Hawk?
is
What's Kitty Hawk?
The Wright
Who's
brothers.
that? Oh, okay.
This is the first private space launch, manned private space launch. This is the introduction to private space travel. It's going to happen eventually. This is the moment when it was kicked off. This is like Kitty Hawk is to powered flight.
Okay. Yeah.
This is a
It's
really
a
big deal.
And it's been one of those things that, like, since we started talking about space travel, in all of our culture, there was this idea that someday anyone's going to be able to go into space if you had enough money. Mm-hmm. And that never came about for the 70 years that we've been traveling to space.
Right.
And this is when it might actually start happening, to where you could pay for a trip to, I don't know, the moon, somewhere.
Right.
Space in general. That's all I got.
Okay. By the way, this is one of those, like, this is so stupid. So NASA has, like, this current goal to put, by 2024, the first woman on the moon.
Yeah.
Here's why that's
silly.
Here's why that's so silly. Because man or woman doesn't matter. Just putting someone on the moon.
Yeah.
It's like the last time a person went to the moon is almost 50 years ago. We shouldn't be worried about man or woman or whatever being on the moon.
Right.
We should just worry about getting someone there.
Yeah. Getting another person there, and maybe this time doing something while we're there, or
That's right.
getting beyond the moon.
Yeah. Let's start thinking about what we're going to do with the moon.
Yeah. Or maybe get to one of these asteroids or something. We've put down probes on astronauts Or
on asteroids?
On asteroids. Put down a probe on an astronaut.
I hate to think what kind of probe. Sorry, folks.
But it just seems like there should be some bigger goals, but I don't know. Okay, we haven't been to the moon in 50 years, so yeah, it is going to be a big deal to go back there because I guess a lot of things the way we did it is going to change.
Yeah.
Of course, how many times have we gone to the moon?
Oh, you know what? Good question.
How many times have we had a person on the moon?
Well, there
haven't been that many.
There have been 12 people who have walked on the moon. I don't know how many missions, because there may be some missions where there's multiple people, but 12 people have walked on the moon.
Okay. Yeah, I think at one point we got to the moon and we said there's no reason to come back here unless we can actually do something here that would make life better. But with the commercial injection, probably we will find a way to make money on going to the moon.
Right.
Hopefully.
By the way, I don't know if we talked about this I don't know if we talked about this on our podcast, but there's this Go
ahead, I won't laugh.
No. So there's this kind of idea that in missionary lands, the diocese from which a missionary exploration was launched is the controlling diocese for that land.
No, I never.
Until another one, so the let's see. So how does this work? I think it's like the that's not. I think it's like maybe the Orlando diocese, where whichever diocese the Kennedy Space Center is, from where the Apollo 11 mission was launched and was the first mission to land on the moon. So the entire surface of the moon right now is technically under the jurisdiction of, I think, like the Orlando Archdiocese or the Orlando Diocese or something like that. I don't know if I have the exact one, but it's like that making it
how well they do with that,
making it the largest diocese in the world right now, or something like that.
It's big.
I'm sure that there's some technicality that's not. It doesn't really work that way, but.
Do we have any other nonsense news?
We do. Okay, three things. First of all, this is weird. A Pennsylvania woman. Every week it seems I'm reading more about these like macabre things. Pennsylvania woman allegedly kept her grandma's corpse in a freezer for 15 years while she continued to collect the Social Security checks.
Wow.
I know.
She had to. It wasn't just keeping her in a freezer. She had to do things.
Yeah.
To make it seem like she's still
alive. So she had to collect and cash the check. Well, the checks might have been going into like direct deposit, and she just kind of had access to the account and would use it and stuff. Maybe had a credit card in her grandma's name or whatever that she'd use to buy stuff online. Who knows? I don't know. But 15 years.
That's a long time.
I mean, if you find like beef in your fridge 15 years old, you don't eat it. I don't think meat is supposed to last 15 years in a freezer.
Yeah. Have you ever read any of Cormac McCarthy's books?
Cormac McCarthy.
He wrote No Country for Old Men.
No, I haven't read any of his books.
The Road.
Okay. Was No Country
I think he's
for
an
Old Men
exceptional writer.
Was No Country for Old Men as depressing as the movie was?
Oh, twice as.
Oh gosh.
Same with The Road.
Is there a movie The Road? I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's kind of a guy and his little kid are walking through post-apocalyptic world, and
what makes
depressing?
What makes depressing stories attractive? I don't get it. I don't like reading them.
You don't?
No. Not unless there's some something that about the human spirit or something like for example, Gattaca. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
In a sense, you could think it had a depressing ending, but there was something, redeeming about it.
Yeah.
Edifying. But I didn't find anything edifying about No Country for Old Men. I just didn't like it. Left a bad taste in my mouth.
I didn't find it edifying, but I kind of liked the movie, but I really liked the book. I don't know why I like depressing books. I read them all the time.
It's where you pour all that anger. Instead of getting offended, you read depressing books.
Yeah. And I'll read like the same one 3 or 4 times sometimes.
Wow.
I've read No Country for Old Men at least 3 times. Philip K. Dick, that's why I like his books. Most of them are pretty depressing.
Yeah, they do kind of have depressing endings.
Do Androids Dream? That was a depressing one.
But there was always that he always kind of left that nugget there for you, though. It wasn't completely depressing.
Yeah. Anyway, my reason for bringing him up is he wrote a book called Suttree, and it's about it's about something, but in it there is a guy who's I think his like stepfather dies or something, and they continue to collect the welfare, so they end up not reporting him dead, and then that small situation that might have lasted a week or 2 ends up lasting for more than a year. And suddenly you're in a situation like, what the heck do we do? Why did we do this? Now,
how can you get out?
Now you've got a body and you don't know what to do with it. And so, so this lady did that.
Apparently in real life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. This is a little bit lighter. So it turns out that penguins' feces has a lot of laughing gas in it.
Nitrous
oxide. Yeah. Okay. Emitted by penguin fecal matter. Apparently so much the scientists are saying it's actually a significant greenhouse gas.
So we gotta kill all the penguins,
I guess,
in order to save the planet. It's the penguins doing it, not the spray cans. So like if you went around sniffing penguin feces, would you get high?
Well, if you went around like
if you saved a bunch of it up or something.
Yeah, I mean if you go to a place
I've decided
if you go to a place where if you go to a place where they congregate and do their business, I guess being around there you can get a little bit high. Anyway,
I didn't know that.
Comes from their diet of fish and krill, which themselves eat on phytoplankton in the ocean. I guess the soil bacteria convert them into nitrous oxide. So I guess it's kind of like the poo emits the nitrous oxide as it decays is how it works.
Yeah. I've always wanted a pet penguin.
Well,
I don't know why.
Now you
that
have an
and a seal. I wanted a seal. Yeah. What if you tried to steal a penguin from the zoo? Because they have them in some parts of the zoo. They have them close to where people can get to.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how hard that would be to steal an animal from the zoo.
Yeah.
Because how else would you get a penguin?
I don't know
if anyone sells.
There may be some exotic
who sell exotic animals.
Well, yeah,
but I've never heard of them selling a penguin.
It could be that like it's illegal to own a penguin without a license or something like that. Some animals are like that.
Yeah, no, they're not endangered or anything. I don't think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Third one. This is the end. All right. I'm going to put out a warning here, parents. If you're listening to this in the car and your kids are underage, maybe wait and listen to it later.
Skip it.
This is skip to the next show. So the football club in Seoul, Korea, in South Korea, because of the coronavirus, they wanted to play football, I guess, but they couldn't have the crowds and that kind of stuff. So they imported a bunch of mannequins to pose as fans, and they have them posed, holding signs and cheering different things. It turns out that they're all a bunch of sex dolls.
Did the football players get fooled by this?
The management did, it says. I don't know. It says we'd like to...
I've known football players, and I can see how maybe it would be pretty easy to fool them into thinking that the stands are full. But
yeah, well, apparently the supplier makes both clothing mannequins and sex dolls. And they assured that the football club officials that these are just going to be all clothing mannequins made to look real. And then it turned out that the football club managers didn't check for themselves, and they placed the mannequins out around the stands, and then people started noticing that, their proportions were not what a little bit too, exaggerated.
A little too perfect.
Yeah. And people started writing in, wait a minute, why do you guys have sex dolls in the stands?
So then a bunch of people stole a bunch of sex dolls.
I guess then the fans started disappearing from the stadiums at that point.
Yeah. Suddenly there's less people there. I don't understand the purpose of having the sex dolls.
What?
Are they trying to make the football players think that the stadium is full?
Oh yeah, I no. Well, I think they're trying to. I don't know if they're trying to make the watchers think, or the football players think that
like the people
the stadium has
at
real
home.
people. But I mean, they're still. I think it's just to create sort of an ambiance of people in the stands cheering or something like that. Even though they're obviously not moving or anything. In fact,
it's such a weird thing to do.
Okay, this is even weirder. Forget whether it's sex dolls or mannequins, okay? Let's even pretend they're mannequins for a minute.
Yeah.
They're wearing COVID masks.
That's so stupid. I don't know. People are doing the dumbest things with this COVID virus.
Let's go back. Okay, parents, you can turn it back on now. So in South Korea, the football club of Seoul has imported these mannequins to replace fans at the football games. The mannequins are wearing COVID masks.
I wonder if the mannequins are buying hot dogs and spending money
that fans would. Yeah. It appears that they also have some cutout fans along there too that aren't full mannequins. They're just like those,
like boards,
two-dimensional, boards.
Yeah. Boy, football players are really dumb.
Gosh. Well, you know what? That's how they select them, don't they? They line them all up. They line the little, the 12-year-old kids in South Korea up and in a field, and they told them, okay, I want you all to run in a straight line. And they have them run towards a forest. And the ones that smack into the trees, they take them and make them football players.
There are so many dumb things happening because of the COVID-19 virus. And I never thought
the world could be this stupid.
Like society as a whole, communally, we're all so stupid.
Yeah.
And like here and there's a smart person who sees what's going on and he's pulling his hair out saying, what the heck is wrong with you people? But it doesn't seem like the majority. Okay.
All right.
Well,
I think that's it, folks.
I guess we better keep praying.
Keep circling those beads.
What else can you say? Think about what we said, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.